Virginia, our friend Denver Riggleman. Denver, welcome, my friend. So here we go. The administration has crowed about the success of this military operation. But what comes next? When Trump says the U.S. is going to run Venezuela and, quote, take back the oil, what exactly does that mean?
Well, I'm glad you start with easy questions, Alex. I appreciate it so much here on this Sunday. But, it's funny. I did this professionally from mission planning with joint mission packages, utilizing NSA, NGA, Special Operations, Air Force, Navy, joint assets from 2001 to 2011. So this was an impressive operation, but it was not by no means unprecedented. Venezuela is not that hard of a nut to crack. So I want to say that first of all. Secondly, I'll say this. I think when you look at Project 2025, and Alex, I'm actually answering your question, I promise. They talked about rehemisphering. I think people just need to read Project 2025 because the oil reserves and taking back Venezuela was part of the plan that was written by Heritage or led by Heritage. Rehemisphering just simply means that regionally we're going to control our region, which is this side, sort of like the Monroe Doctrine, but a little bit of a different spin. But I think that's why you've seen the laissez-faire attitude towards Ukraine, where we just words, we really don't do anything about Putin. And also when you're seeing Chinese exercise in Taiwan, right, over the last week. So I think we're seeing a complete resetting of our foreign policy based on a nationalistic look of rehemisphering as defined in Project 2025. So when you're talking about oil reserves specifically, I think right now, and again, I don't want to say this is investment advice at all. I'm just going to tell you what I think is really happening. I don't think you're going to see a majority of troops on the ground when he's talking about taking over the oil. I think it's a boon for private security contract services and also infrastructure services. Think all the grandchildren of Blackwater. If you're talking about those type of companies, right, like Academy, like Triple Canopy, like G4S. And if you're talking about Halliburton type companies that are going to be doing infrastructure. Now, I was watching the show at the beginning, looking at Chuck Schumer talking about on the back of a napkin and things like that. Nah, number one, that's just wrong. It wasn't back the napkin. That's a complex exercise that's been in work for some time. And Trump alluded to this in October. That was an excellent chart that you showed. But that was actually alluded to back when the Project 2025 report was released. You're talking about 23, 24. So this is really not a surprise to people who've sort of been tracking this. When you're talking about taking the oil back, though, you're talking about actually private contractors and just a huge boon for these type of individuals.
And I will say, as I was listening to David Noriega's report from Bogota, he did have that soundbite from Meet the Press today with Marco Rubio. He absolutely referenced the rehemisphering that you're talking about there. But look, Trump claims that they are working. Well, yeah, you must have, gotten your jacket on before coming on the show because it was right before you. But anyway, Trump claims that they are working with Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. They're seeming to support her over Edmundo Gonzalez, who is believed to have won the 2024 election. But if Maduro was illegitimate, how can you not say the same for his vice president?
I was I was watching that when you're talking about, when you're talking about the opposition leader who's going in there and you're sort of being condescending or pushing that individual back based on popular, not popular, but just a nice person, nice woman. It's sort of ludicrous. So I did agree with when they said just replacing one dictator with another. What is really our plan? And I laughed at Rubio's answer, and I'm sorry I missed the rehemisphering. But I did laugh at his answer, I think, on one of the earlier shows today when he talked about, well, we don't want to take 5 people. So, look, people are mad about one. I mean, really, we're going to do that kind of complex mission planning and not identify really what the head of the snake is. I mean, it's sort of ludicrous. So, again, I just find it amazing that we just don't have this ability in foreign policy to put all the talent together. And I'm going to tell you why, Alex, because there's a distinct lack of talent at the foreign policy level. And when you hear the bravado or the hyperbole coming from leadership in our United States government, those who've been in the business a long time know this is a lot harder than people think.
Republican Thomas Massie and, as of tomorrow, former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene have slammed this as defying America first. The administration pushed back, saying it's taking action to stop Americans being harmed by the drug trade. But will MAGA supporters buy that, especially when it's not a one-and-done operation, but it is something ongoing for potentially quite some time? What side do you think they're going to land on?
God, Alex, I think MAGA has 3 comorbidities right now. I think there's some infection, and I think going against the nationalist fervor of MAGA by starting these wars when he promised not to is going to be problematic regardless of how they try to paint it. I think the second thing, too, when you look at what's happening with our economy and healthcare and Medicaid, or actually ACA and the subsidies, that's going to hit red districts really hard. So now you have two issues, right, with MAGA. You got two comorbidities. I think the third comorbidity, when you're looking at all this, are the Epstein files, right? And the fact that a lot of MAGA is sort of based on conspiratorial thinking, that's QAnon sort of substantiated type of stuff or unsubstantiated type of stuff. So those are the three things that are happening. And I think when you look at Venezuela, when I think you look at Nigeria, when I think, 8 different countries now that have been struck, either bombed or activities against them, I think there is something that's additive here. And I think once you have those three comorbidities, I think Democrats and those are even independents running can say, hey, we have this special messaging. And I wouldn't be surprised, Alex, if you see the first anti-Trump Republicans coming back to run in some of these districts.
Before you go, Denver, of course, Tuesday marks 5 years since the January 6th insurrection. In a congressional hearing last month, Jack Smith said the riot, quote, does not happen without Trump. And a new op-ed from the New York Times calls Trump the January 6th president, marking a turning point to an even more lawless version of him. So how has that day led us to where we are now?
Fantasy-based policy, things that aren't true, right? Making decisions on, sort of hyperbole and vapors. I think that's what this administration's about. And I don't like to do this, but you can see over my shoulder the breach. I think it was the only one who wrote a book in the last 5 years on the data that day. And Jack Smith is totally right. The Meadows text messages really did structure the entire investigation. And now downstream, you look at the phone records, you look what Jack Smith found, you look what the committee found. January 6th was such a day in American history. It really was a coup attempt, and I think in multiple levels. And Jack Smith was bold and brave to do what he did. I think the committee was, but I think what Jack Smith did was he tore the Band-Aid and showed, the festering wound of stupidity and fantasy that comes from January 6th truthers. And that's just something that for me, after 5 years with the lack of accountability, with 45% of the American public, still not quite sure what happened that day, or just flatly conspiratorially not believing it. I just think it's insane that we're still here today and we don't realize that January 6th was a day that we need to keep in our psyche, but we need to teach is how you do a multiple level effort to overthrow a free and fair election.
Gotta say, I still applaud you writing The Breach, and I'm not alone because it was a bestseller, my friend. So thank you very much. Always good to see you. Thank you, Denver.
Thank you, ma'am.